The storm had rolled in like a quiet threat, painting the sky with heavy gray clouds over the small town of Willow Creek. Inside the modest ranch house at the edge of the woods, Iris Whelan sipped her tea in silence. The wind tapped gently at the windows, and in the distance, the faint howl of a coyote stirred the two German shepherds resting near the hearth. Hawke, the older of the two, lifted his head first, his ears pointed, alert. Sable followed, her gaze soft yet focused, sensing something different in the wind. Then it came again, a sound not native to these parts. A whimper, weak, high-pitched and unfamiliar. Iris set her mug down and rose slowly, every joint a quiet protest from years of labor. She had lived alone for almost a decade since Ellis passed. The dogs were her lifeline now. Hawke was steady and stoic, always between her and the world. Sable, nurturing and gentle, never far from her side. When she opened the front door, the cold air slapped her cheeks. But it wasn't the chill that took her breath. It was what she saw lying in the mud beyond the fence. A striped bundle, small, shivering, eyes wide with instinctual terror. It wasn't a dog, nor a raccoon. It was impossible. A tiger, Iris whispered, her voice trembling. She had seen Ellis bring home injured owls and foxes from his years as a wildlife photographer, but never anything like this. She moved slowly, unthreateningly. Hawke stood behind her like a shadow. Sable whined low, her maternal instinct already stirring. The cub didn't move when Iris reached him, too weak. She could feel every bone through its wet fur. How had it gotten here? Why was it alone? She didn't hesitate. The cub was light, no more than 15 pounds. Inside, Iris laid him by the fireplace on an old wool blanket. Hawke circled, eyes narrowed with caution. Sable moved beside the cub, sniffing, then lying down beside him without a sound, as if her body understood what his needed: warmth, presence, protection. The house fell into silence, except for the ticking of the wall clock and the cub's ragged breath. That night, Iris barely slept. She sat near the fire, watching the unlikely trio. Her mind spun with questions. What would she tell the town? Was it legal to keep such a creature? But more than that, what if this wasn't an accident? What if he had been left here? Outside, the wind howled louder, and deep in the shadows of the woods, something or someone was watching. Morning came with a soft mist clinging to the fields beyond the ranch. Iris stood at the kitchen sink, hands wrapped around a warm mug, eyes fixed on the living room where the tiger cub still slept, curled against Sable's side. Hawke lay at a careful distance, watchful as ever, but no longer growling. The transformation overnight had been quiet and profound. There was no snarling, no resistance, just acceptance. Somehow, the two dogs had opened a space in their world for something not their own. Iris didn't fully understand it, but part of her didn't want to. Sometimes, love doesn't need explanation. She had called Dr. Kerr just after sunrise, one of Ellis's oldest friends and a retired zoologist who lived up north. She knew if anyone could help her understand what this was, and what it meant, it would be him. His reaction was cautious but curious. A Bengal cub? Out there? Are you certain? Iris had sent photos, and the reply came with a heavy pause. You have to be careful. That kind of animal doesn't just wander into a backyard. But Iris already knew that. The deeper question wasn't what he was, but why he had come to her. The cub stirred and stretched, letting out a soft sound that sounded more like a sigh than a roar. His green eyes opened, locking with hers across the room. There was something in them, not fear, not confusion, but recognition. As if he had seen her before in another life, in another form. Iris knelt beside him and touched his head gently. You're not just lost, are you? She whispered. You were sent. She didn't know why she believed it, but she did. Sable nuzzled the cub as if in agreement. Hawke watched, still cautious but no longer tense. The cub responded by licking Sable's muzzle, then turning his head toward Iris's hand. He nudged her fingers, then let out a sound, short, breathy, odd, almost like a name. And just like that, she knew what to call him. Rune, she said softly, because there's mystery in you. A message I haven't learned to read yet. Iris spent the day preparing formula, following Dr. Kerr's instructions over the phone. Rune fed without resistance, his appetite strong, his trust growing. He followed Sable like a shadow, mimicked Hawke's posture, and by evening, had taken to sleeping between the two dogs like he'd belonged there forever. But Iris knew that no matter how calm the days seemed now, time was against them. Rune wouldn't stay small. That night, as the moon rose over the treeline, headlights swept across the gravel road below the ranch. A dark vehicle slowed near the mailbox, then drove on. But Iris had already felt the shift. Someone else now knew Rune existed. Rune was growing fast. Just 2 weeks had passed since Iris found him, but the change was visible in every step he took. His legs were longer, more stable. His shoulders carried a subtle power, still innocent but unmistakably wild. Sable remained glued to his side like a patient mentor, guiding his every move, correcting him gently with a nudge or soft growl. Hawke, ever the sentinel, had begun to warm up to Rune. Sometimes, Iris caught the old dog watching the cub with something almost like pride, but not without concern. Inside the house, Rune had learned routines. He waited for his formula beside the kitchen stool. He curled beside the hearth just before sunset. But there were moments when instinct overruled habit, like when he stalked a bird through the window or lunged too hard during play. The softness in him was still there, but something older stirred behind his eyes. A memory not his own. A pulse from generations of wildness. And Iris, she saw it. One morning, Iris stood by the barn hanging sheets when she noticed the car again. The same dark SUV from before, now parked farther down the road. Not close enough to trespass, but close enough to watch. She didn't wave. She didn't move. The car eventually pulled away, but a knot formed in her stomach and refused to loosen. Someone knew what Rune was, and they were waiting. That afternoon, Iris called Thatcher Boone. They hadn't spoken in years, not since Ellis's memorial, but she remembered him as fair and level-headed. He was now an environmental agent assigned to their region. His voice was calm but firm. Iris, if it's a Bengal tiger, there are legal implications. You can't just keep him like a house cat. She already knew that, but what could she say? Rune wasn't dangerous. Not yet. Not with her. Not with them. After the call, Rune seemed agitated. He paced, tail twitching. Sable tried to calm him, and Hawke stood at the door, ears perked, body stiff. Iris sat on the floor, opening Ellis's old wildlife journal, the one filled with sketches and notes from his trips. Near the back, she found a page she didn't remember seeing before. A tiger cub alone in a clearing. Beside it, her husband had written, "Some animals find you when they're meant to." As the sun dipped low, Rune let out a sound Iris had never heard before. Low, guttural, distant. Not a cry, not a call, a warning. And in the woods beyond the fence, something shifted in response. Rune had started to test his boundaries, not in disobedience but in instinct. Every day, he wandered a little farther from the porch, sniffed a little deeper into the tall grass, followed the wind with more determination. The fenced yard, once vast for a cub, now felt small beneath his growing paws. Hawke followed him at a distance, always alert, his steps heavy and deliberate. Sable, though more relaxed, kept a maternal eye. It was as if they both sensed what Iris refused to admit. Rune wasn't meant to stay confined. Iris had reinforced the fences. She'd added a new lock to the gate, but Rune's mind had begun to shift. He no longer responded immediately to his name. Sometimes, he stared into the woods for long minutes, ears flicking, muscles tense. It was subtle but undeniable, something was calling to him. And one morning, before the sun rose, Iris found a shallow dig beneath the fence. It hadn't been deep enough to escape, but the intention was clear. Rune had tried. That same morning, Sheriff Cormac Dwyer knocked on her door. His tone was clipped, his presence uneasy. "Got a call from a neighbor," he said, not stepping past the porch. Said she saw something big, orange, striped, near the treeline. Iris tried to steady her voice. Must have been a bobcat. We've had a few. But he didn't believe her. I know what bobcats look like, he muttered. And so do your neighbors. He didn't issue a warning, but the message was clear. They were watching. Later that day, Rune refused his bottle for the first time. He batted it away with a frustrated growl and paced the room, restless and silent. When Sable approached, he swatted at her. Not hard, but enough to surprise them all. Iris froze. Rune immediately lowered his ears in regret and curled against Sable's side, as if to apologize. But Hawke didn't take it lightly. He stood between them for the rest of the evening, watching Rune with new eyes. Iris stayed up late again, reading Ellis's old notes. There were pages about tiger behavior, instincts triggered by age, seasons, scent. At 6 months, one entry read, "They start remembering what they never learned." Rune was nearly 5 months now. Her heart sank. She had known this was coming, but she hadn't expected it to feel like losing a child. That night, when Iris checked the back door, she found it slightly open, just an inch, enough for something small or something growing. And from the woods beyond, a single pair of eyes gleamed under moonlight, watching, waiting. Rune had always fit into the rhythm of Iris's home, as if nature had rewritten itself to allow it. But now that rhythm was breaking. His silence had grown heavier, his curiosity sharper. Every movement he made seemed calculated, alert. His ears twitching at sounds Iris couldn't hear. Even his affection had changed. Gone were the playful nudges and eager snuggles. Now he observed from across the room, like a guest no longer sure he belonged. Hawke had become distant. Not hostile, but reserved, guarded. He no longer shared space with Rune unless necessary. Sable, ever the peacemaker, tried to soothe them both, but even she seemed tired. Rune towered over her now, nearly twice her size, though his eyes still sought her when he felt unsure. The dynamic in the house had shifted. What once felt like family now felt like a fragile truce. Iris tried to pretend things were normal. She still woke early to prepare Rune's food, still read aloud from Ellis's journals while they lounged by the fire. But Rune no longer listened. He stared into the flames like they whispered to him, like they reminded him of a world that didn't have fences or leashes or porch lights. Deep inside, Iris began to feel it. He's not mine anymore. But that thought tore at her, so she buried it beneath routines and hope. That afternoon, Thatcher Boone showed up in person. His government badge weighed heavier than his voice. He was careful with his words, but not with his gaze. "You can't keep him, Iris," he said. "You've done more than most people ever could. But he's not just a tiger anymore. He's becoming one." She stood there, arms crossed, tears threatening behind her eyes. "He's never hurt anyone. He's not dangerous." Thatcher didn't answer immediately. Not yet. That night, Rune didn't sleep indoors. He stood by the back fence for hours, tail still, eyes fixed on the dark woods beyond. Sable lay near the door, waiting. Hawke paced near Iris's bedroom like he could feel the shift coming. At midnight, Rune growled. Not at the house, not at the dogs, but at the trees. A low, guttural warning that made Hawke freeze and Iris sit upright in bed. Something out there had answered. From deep in the forest, a second growl echoed back. It wasn't a coyote. It wasn't a bobcat. It was another tiger. The following morning was unnaturally still. No birds sang. No deer grazed along the fence line. Even the wind had paused, as if the land itself sensed what was coming. Iris stood on the porch wrapped in her late husband's flannel shirt, eyes fixed on the woods. Rune hadn't returned inside. He lay near the back fence, head up, eyes fixed on the tree-line, ears twitching every few seconds. Hawke was posted by the steps, tense and unmoving. Sable whined softly, pacing, unsettled by a danger she couldn't yet name. There were tracks near the edge of the property. Iris saw them clearly in the damp earth. Fresh, heavy, unmistakable. Another tiger had come within yards of the house during the night. Rune knew it. He had felt it before she had. And now something in him had changed. His steps were longer. his movements sharper. His gaze no longer softened when Iris called his name. She called out, "Rune, come eat." And for the first time, he didn't respond. Later that day, Iris caught him snarling, truly snarling, at Hawke over a bone. It had never happened before. It ended quickly, no violence, but the sound chilled her. Hawke had backed off and Rune stood taller afterward, more assertive, more primal. Sable tried to intervene with a gentle nudge, but Rune brushed past her without looking back. Iris watched from the doorway, her heart sinking. The tiger cub she raised was fading. What remained was something ancient, something not made for porches or people. As dusk fell, the silence of the forest shattered. A deep roar rang out, closer than the night before. Iris ran outside, flashlight shaking in her hand, and found Rune by the fence, his body low, muscles tense, eyes blazing. Beyond the trees, she caught only a flicker of orange moving between shadows. Another tiger, full-grown, real. Rune roared back, and the sound vibrated through Iris's chest like thunder in her bones. The two shepherds stood beside her, Hawke growling low, Sable trembling. Iris clutched the gate, unsure whether to run, shout, or cry. Rune turned to look at her, just for a moment, and in his eyes she saw both a plea and a decision. He wasn't just curious anymore. He was choosing. Something in the wild had awakened him, and he was being pulled toward it like gravity. That night, Rune didn't sleep near the house. He didn't sleep at all. He stood watch, head high, until the moon dipped low and the forest answered again. Not with a roar this time, but with footsteps, slow, deliberate, getting closer. By sunrise, Rune was gone. The gate hadn't been broken. There were no signs of struggle or panic. Just an open latch swinging gently in the wind and paw prints. His paw prints, leading into the woods. Hawke had been the first to notice. He stood by the empty spot near the fence for over an hour, unmoving. Sable refused to eat. Iris, shaking with a pain she hadn't expected to come so soon, walked the trail Rune had left, calling his name in a voice that cracked more with each step. The forest didn't answer. Iris wandered until her legs gave out, falling beside a fallen log deep in the trees. The stillness around her was haunting. No movement, no birdsong, just silence that pressed on her chest like grief. She held onto the collar she had never managed to buckle around Rune's neck. He had never needed it. He had always come home. But now, he had crossed some invisible threshold between pet and predator, between son and stranger. Back at the house, Thatcher Boone stood beside her truck. "He's gone, isn't he?" he asked, not unkindly. Iris didn't answer. He continued, "If that was a wild male calling him, there's no bringing him back. That bond overrides everything." Iris met his eyes, exhausted. "Then you didn't see the way he looked at me before he left." Boone said nothing, but the way his jaw clenched said he didn't believe that would matter anymore. That night it rained. Heavy, unrelenting, as if the sky itself mourned something unspoken. Sable lay at the door, ears twitching with every gust of wind. Hawke didn't move from the hallway, guarding nothing but memory. Iris sat in Ellis's old chair with a blanket over her knees and Rune's bottle, still full, on the table. The fire had gone out. The warmth had left with him. Then, just after midnight, a sound shattered the stillness. A yelp. High, sharp, familiar. Sable leapt to her feet. Iris dropped the bottle. And from the darkness beyond the porch light, a single figure limped into view. But it wasn't Rune. It was Sable. She limped through the yard, soaked and trembling, blood on her side and a look in her eyes Iris had never seen before. Panic. Iris rushed outside barefoot, heart pounding. Hawke barked once, sharp and deep, before rushing to meet them. Sable collapsed at the porch steps, her breathing shallow but steady. Iris dropped to her knees and cradled the old dog, running her hands over her damp fur. There were no deep wounds, just scratches, bruises, and fear. Whatever had happened out there, it hadn't been a fight to kill. It had been a warning. Inside, Iris cleaned Sable's wounds while whispering softly, over and over, "Where is he? Where is Rune?" But of course, there was no answer. Sable trembled as Iris wrapped her with towels, pressing close as if trying to speak without words. Hawke stood in the corner, pacing. His instincts were raging. He wanted to go after Rune, but he wouldn't leave Sable behind. Neither would Iris. Not again. Thatcher Boone came by the next morning. His eyes landed on Sable's limp body beside the fire, and for the first time, he didn't speak with authority. He knelt beside her, his face tense. "Something drove them apart," he muttered. "A fight for dominance, maybe, or a test." Iris stared out the window, her voice low. He wouldn't hurt her, not Rune. He loved her. Boone didn't argue, but his silence said everything. Iris spent the day watching the woods. Every time a branch moved, she looked. Every time the wind shifted, she stood. Rune wasn't gone. She felt him out there, but something had changed. He had crossed deeper into the forest than ever before, and she wasn't sure there was still a path back. That night, she opened the back gate and left it wide, just in case, just once more. As the house fell into silence, Iris walked to the barn, guided only by instinct and moonlight. She opened the doors slowly, breathing in the scent of hay and old wood. And there, in the corner on the dirt floor, tracks. Fresh, large, alone. Her breath caught. Rune had been here, not long ago, watching, maybe listening, maybe trying to decide. Then she saw it. One of Ellis's old flannel shirts, torn and carried into the barn like a nest, folded in the straw, covered in paw prints. And next to it, a claw mark carved into the barn wall, deep, deliberate. Not a message, not a threat, but a sign. The next few days passed like a dream half remembered. Sable slowly recovered, her limp softening, though she remained cautious, staying near Iris at all times. Hawke grew more silent, watching every corner of the woods as if expecting Rune to appear at any moment. And Iris felt herself unraveling gently. She didn't cry. She didn't sleep much. Instead, she moved through the house like it was a museum of something she once believed permanent. Every night, she left the barn door open, and every morning, she found new signs. A disturbed hay pile, fresh paw prints near the creek, the sound of heavy breathing just beyond the light. Rune was circling, close but not crossing the line. Iris began to wonder, was he afraid to return, or was he protecting them from himself? One afternoon, while walking near the far fence line, Iris found a new trail. It was a path Rune had cleared himself, his prints pressed deep into the wet soil. It didn't lead into the woods. It led back toward the house, back to the place where he'd been raised. She followed it until it vanished beneath the tall grass, but in her chest, a flicker of hope stirred. He hadn't let go completely, not yet. That night, she returned to the barn, but this time, she brought something different. Ellis's old field recorder. She placed it in the corner and spoke into it with trembling hands. "Rune," she said softly, "I don't know if you understand these words anymore. Maybe you never did. But if you're still listening, if you still remember who we were, you're always welcome here. This will always be home." Then she stepped back, left the barn open once more, and returned to the porch where Sable and Hawke waited. The stars above shimmered like quiet witnesses. Hours passed. No movement. No sounds but wind and insects. But Iris stayed up, watching, hoping. And just before dawn, a soft thud echoed from the barn. Sable stood first. Hawke rose slowly, not barking. Iris held her breath. The screen door creaked as she stepped into the grass barefoot, her heart pounding. And in the moonlight, she saw it Rune, lying in the hay, eyes half closed, body still. He wasn't asleep. He was waiting, not wild, not tame, somewhere in between. Rune didn't move when Iris approached. His breathing was steady, his eyes soft, but distant, like someone looking back through a window into a life he couldn't quite re-enter. He had grown, his shoulders now broader than Hawke's, his paws heavy with silent power. But something in his expression was still the same. Still the cub who once curled beside a shepherd's warmth and drank formula from a bottle in a quiet kitchen. Iris sat beside him in the hay without a word. For a long time, neither of them spoke, only listened to the stillness. She reached out slowly, unsure if he would flinch, but he didn't. He leaned into her hand, just for a moment. It was enough. The wall between them hadn't collapsed, but it had cracked. Sable appeared at the barn door, limping slightly, and gave a single short whine. Rune's ears perked. He stood and walked to her, touched his nose to hers, and let out a soft rumble, more breath than sound. She nuzzled him once, and then stepped back, like she understood something that even Iris didn't. Iris knew what needed to happen. She rose to her feet, walked to the old cedar post where Ellis had carved a heart into the wood years ago, and tied a strip of red flannel around it. A sign, a goodbye, promise. Then she turned to Rune and smiled through tears. "You don't belong in a cage," she whispered. "Not here, not anywhere, but you'll always be part of this place. And part of me." That morning, Iris watched Rune walk toward the trees. He paused at the edge, looked back once, just once, and then disappeared into the forest. No roar, no grand farewell, just the rustle of tall grass and the long shadow of something wild returning to where it came from. Sable sat beside her as he vanished. Hawke, dignified as always, remained a silent sentinel. The porch light flickered off with the rising sun. Weeks passed, then months. Rumors spread of tiger sightings near Willow Creek. Tracks distant roars. But no attacks, no fear, only wonder. And sometimes, late at night, Iris would hear something move near the barn. Hay disturbed, paw prints in the dirt, a broken branch by the creek. Just enough to let her know he hadn't forgotten. And every spring, when the wildflowers bloomed by the fence line, she'd find a fresh claw mark carved into that old cedar post. Not deep, not angry, just present. A quiet reminder that love, once given, never truly leaves.